Hey Ev, what's up?
Not much came in yourself.
Just enjoying a beautiful day and looking forward to this podcast.
Yeah, this is episode 8 of Oneness Radio.
Is it 8?
It is.
Okay, wow, that was fast. I mean, I guess we should just kind of jump right into it, and we'll worry about flow later on. It'll find us. So I wanted to kind of today for myself continue on kind of from last time.
Sounds good.
To kind of like go over some stuff, and that's where I'm kind of sitting with since the last podcast. How about yourself?
Yeah, basically the same thing as well. So for me, it's still sort of that process of, all right, well, this major crisis is on and what's coming up, and essentially how I've dealt with it since that last podcast.
Okay. And I don't even know when this is going to be posted. So
Exactly. That's right.
we got to try to time it so that it's up and ready at least within the time when people can use it the most, I'm hoping. So how have you been dealing with everything? And since the last time?
Yeah, well, it seems that I'm sort of going through that sort of, that sort of stages of like denial and then fear and then grief and that sort of stage. I don't know what it's called exactly. And then acceptance. And then, so I seem to have gone through that sort of phase and quite relatively quickly. So since the last time I was feeling a lot of fear about the situation and uncertainty, but with a lot of sort of reflection and going inward, just letting that sort of play itself out. And then sort of once that energy had sort of expressed itself, it's dissipated and it's gone, and feeling much more relaxed and calm about the situation, and continuing to try and implement mindfulness throughout the day, which has been fantastic. I actually watched a video this morning with my wife. She found this video by this doctor named John. I can't remember his name now. But he developed this system of mindfulness that she actually took a course in it. And it was basically around mindfulness when you're stressed and how to deal with stress. And he gave a live talk, and there were about 20,000 people in this live talk, and it was fantastic. And everything he was saying was just absolutely amazing. Just like right on, splitting mad truth. And just like, because a lot of people are asking him questions, how do I deal with this situation? How do I deal with this situation? How do I deal with this situation? And basically it just comes back to the same thing, and just bringing yourself back to stillness and being mindful of the situation, and the solution will present itself as needed, right? So not trying to solve the situation, but just being there with it.
Yeah, I was speaking with a lot of family members recently and friends from different parts of the world because of what's going on, and everyone's trying to get in touch with the people that are important to them and make sure everyone's okay. And then I find that when I speak to them, they kind of go, well, I'm doing this, or I'm dealing with it like that, or it's all about this. And people are kind of using each other as a sounding board and kind of tentatively putting out, well, before they kind of, jump in with their opinion on everything, they kind of go, well, I kind of think this, or I'm kind of trying to do that, right? I find we're just using each other as sounding boards to kind of come to a consensus and a way to move forward together, right? So it's a very grand opportunity. And it's a great motivator for people to kind of turn towards more of a unifying and mindful way of living, of course. And then as all that's happening, people are dealing with also their everyday struggles in the background. So it's kind of like a lot of people are dealing with day-to-day things. And at the same time, there's this shadow of stress that the collective consciousness is under on top of it all in the background. And I was talking to another friend of mine who meditates. And I kind of, well, I found this video on the internet, and it was popped up in my YouTube algorithm. I don't know why, but it was this piano player. And in Thailand, there's a animal rescue, like an elephant rescue. So they, in Thailand, they still use elephants as beasts of burden.
Yeah.
And, for attractions and stuff. And, they're very intelligent. So this does traumatize them in a way. So this foundation basically has bought all this land and kind of like a conservation park area. And it goes and gets these elephants from captivity and gives them a place to live. Relatively wild, but just letting them roam around the area and do what they want. And a person, I don't know if he visits or why the situation is, but he has a lot of videos where he'll just bring out a piano in the middle of the park and he'll just play for different elephants. And the one that got me was he played the Beethoven's first movement of Moonlight Sonata to an elephant in the middle of the night under the moonlight. And the elephant just kind of just stands there and as if he's just sitting there listening, and he's watching this person perform for him. And, no words can be exchanged between the two. But there was definitely communication going on. And I don't know why the video kind of moved me or stuck with me, but I just started forwarding that around to a lot of people as kind of like I don't know, consider this amongst all that's happening, right? Somewhere, a guy's in the middle of a jungle playing piano for elephants in the moonlight. There's so much beauty to be discovered, and so many loving ideas yet to be shared. And the sky's the limit once we open our hearts to that way of living. Like what makes a person go, you know what? I'm going to play piano for elephants in the wild because I can, and because they can listen, and because they have the capacity to understand at some level the intent in which I'm coming forward with this. And that kind of brings me to my, I guess this is what's flowing out now. It brings me to the topic of intent. And a while ago, I think this is about 2 years ago, I was walking along the beach with a friend of mine, and we were just, talking about deep contemplations and things that we've kind of picked up along our so-called journey. And as I was walking, I started to ponder the concept of sin or wrongdoing. But, there's a general word we call for it, naming it sin. And, of course, you know this already, but the term sin is also used in archery. And in archery, if you miss the bullseye, right, you say, oh, I sinned, right? Or I missed. And the term sin just means to miss the mark. We've taken it upon someone did something wrong. But if you look at it as it was originally kind of thought of, the concept of sin or to miss the mark, it means kind of something else. It takes on a different feel, and there's much more there to kind of like work with. So from this point in consciousness's perspective, I started to ponder this, and it came to me that, once we're not mindful, we're missing the mark.
Yeah.
And then it's our lack of mindfulness that causes us to do things that we regret later.
Mm.
So it doesn't matter what I consider sin and what you consider sin. There's finger pointing and, standards and ways of believing and all that stuff. And everyone's got a different take on it. But let's say, instead of saying I've done something wrong, let's call it doing something that you regret later. Doing something you regret after doing it. And doing something that others regret you doing. Right? In those categories, making them feel less than positive having done something. So you might not even be aware of it, depending on your own self-awareness, but it makes other people feel bad as well. And so all of these are under the category of what I call sin, or not wrongdoing, but missing the mark. And one of the ways to kind of bring this back into mindfulness is, one, to understand when you've missed the mark. Not to go, I've done something bad and then, put yourself through the drama of guilt. But to understand that you've missed the mark, and just like in archery, okay, I know better now. I've got a better reference point to, try and hit the bullseye next time. And if we think of it like an archer, why do we miss the mark? Why do we miss the bullseye? What happens first before someone misses the bullseye? Something has to be not perfect in order for that to happen, or off. And that is the archer's aim. So if the aim is off, you'll never hit the bullseye. So as opposed to trying to focus on, I got to hit the bullseye, perhaps we should focus on our aim. So instead of trying to force ourselves under a discipline of a religious system, trying to force ourselves to be what we know we have the potential to be from the outside in, all the way over at the target, what if we just focused on our aim? What if we focused on our intent? So to be mindful of one's actions is one thing, and to be mindful of one's thoughts is another. And to be mindful of one's emotions is also another thing. But what if one just focused on and kept the question in their own mind and in their heart of, what is my intent? In the emotional, mental space that I'm in right now, if I were to have things play out perfectly as I want them to be, what would be the ends to this? What is my intention here? So ask yourself that right now, as you're listening, or as you're thinking about something that you're going to have to do later today, or something that you've already done today, or something you'll do tomorrow, whatever it is. Ask yourself, what is your intent? Is it gain, wealth, harm, peace, separation, union, fulfillment? It can be many things. But go to the place in yourself for this moment where you are aware of your intent. Who cares of how it gets expressed and what how we rationalize it? Where in you are you aware of your intent and your intentions? If you could sum them up into a word. Find that place within yourself where you're with your intentions. And it's okay to be honest. If you go to this place and realize my intent was to harm, my intent was to shame, my intent was to alarm, my intent was to gain prestige, my intent was to gain wealth. It's okay. Don't judge yourself here. Honesty is very important. What if, instead of trying to control the outcomes, we controlled our intentions? And notice how, just by bringing your awareness to the level of your intentions, you're naturally being mindful. You're naturally quieting yourself. And now in that space, what if you made your intention peace? Don't worry about aiming and controlling the outcome. Just stay with your intent of peace, as if you're at the center point of all that could happen through your body, mind, words. At the center of it, before you any emotion takes place, any thought takes place. Set your intention on peace, so that your intent in whatever you do now, whatever ripples out from that center point, your intent behind it is peace. Don't play things out in your mind. Don't look at how it's going to turn out and how you're going to manipulate it. Just stay at the level and say, my intention is peace. Feel it in your heart. The level of your intentions. The place from which emotion arises. Before words, before thought. In that place that we can't know. It's peace itself. Feel it. Align with it. Join with it. Yoga with it. It is peace. And it is you. Before you know you. And from those depths of essence, source, peace, let yourself feel it in your heart. Let yourself inhale it on your breath and exhale it outwards towards your surroundings. Let it emanate upwards towards your mind. Let it resonate throughout your body. to every last atom. Let it come off you like the smell of a flower in bloom, so that everything within your awareness, within and without, is aware of your intention, is aware of the peace that comes from the nowhere and the nothing into the somewhere and the something. And now look around you to a plant, to a human, to an animal, or to an object, and be with it in that peace, so that your entire intention towards that thing is just peace. Peace be with you. I don't know how to go about it, but that's what I want to communicate through every fiber of my being, with everything that I come into contact with. My intention, my aim in all actions, thoughts, and words is peace. Though your eyes are open, remain in touch with the level of your intention. Now pick up the bow and arrow and let the arrow fly. You won't miss the mark. And now that you know how to hit the bullseye, practice. Let your aim be true, and let the rest be. Peace be with you, brother.
And also with you. What I really liked about that is that you brought a level of understanding to myself anyway through experience. You can't sort of understand this on sort of an intellectual level. And a lot of people claim that, yes, I understand this on an intellectual level, but there's nothing in life that you really do understand on an intellectual level, really. You can't intellectually understand the taste of water, right? Or the color of the sky that you see. It's the same with that stillness and peace within you. You have to experience it. And if you can follow along with what we've been discussing and bring yourself to that place of peace, that's the ultimate goal of spirituality. It's not trying to be something or someone. It's just finding that place of pure stillness and embodying that through the form that you've taken on. And it's beautiful what Cayman has just done there. It's fantastic. And it's important that when you look at your intention, you separate that from your expectation, because often people sort of will confuse these two terms, right? Your expectation is hitting the bullseye, right? And in this case, the intention is just to aim. I used to listen to a lot of Alan Watts a few years ago, and I absolutely love him. And in one of his talks, he describes I guess a social experiment that he conducted with his students, where he said, okay, just think of exactly what you want, your highest desire, whatever that is. Generally, it's some sort of material thing. So it could be having a great job, great career, family, a house, unlimited money to do whatever you want. And he would say, okay, great. Now that you have that, what more do you want, and what more? So you keep following that sort of train of thought of desire and see where it takes you, right? And you'll find that ultimately it will take you to a place of peace, right? So let's say that you want to win the lottery. Cool. All right, so why is that? Well, I want to win the lottery so I can do whatever I want. Great. So what do you want to do? Well, I want to buy a nice cottage, have a great boat, and just spend time with my family, right? Okay, cool. So why do you want to do that? So, I have the time just to relax. All right, well, why do you want to relax? Well, ultimately, just so that I can feel content, right? So what people generally are after, if you follow this train of thought, is just contentment, which is essentially just saying peace. So at some point, you can cut out all the extraneous middle parts and just go straight towards peace, because ultimately that's what you want. You just don't know that you do, because you've been conditioned some way or another to believe that this external object will get you what you want, right? But it's never the case, because once you get that external object, you just need more. You desire more and desire more and desire more. So cut out the expectation of what it will give you and just sit with that intention, right? Sit with that intention of peace. And when you do sit with the intention, don't have any preconceived idea of how that will manifest in your life. And this is where the idea of faith comes in, right? So faith, for me, is not sort of the idea of believing in a set of rules and morals that will guide your life, right? And by doing so, you'll attain something or other, like heaven or God's favor or whatever. Faith ultimately is knowing that you're in God's hands, and that what happens in life is playing out as it's meant to. As long as you stay with that intention of peace, it won't matter what arose. And so instead of wishing things were as you want them to be, you wish for things to be as they are.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. As you were speaking, I was just looking around to the plants in my room and just saying peace be with you to each of them. And I don't know what happened intellectually there, but it was like a communication happening in silence. Because if my intent is peace, then what's left for us to discuss? What's left for me to do? And then, because I was in complete peace with this plant, and then with everything around me, I then now applied the same thing to the thoughts arising in my head. And as they came, I just said to them, "Peace be with you." What about what I have to do tomorrow? Peace be with that. What am I going to eat for dinner tonight? Peace be with that. As if, as thoughts arose in my head, I was an amazing archer, shooting each one of them down with perfect aim. So as they arose, peace be with it. And they just kind of went off to wherever they came from before I was aware of them. Having done that, they left me alone, just like the room left me alone. And then I was feeling fluctuations in my heart, in my emotions. And I couldn't say at that point or think, "Peace be with you." But whatever emotion arose, I felt peace to it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point to bring up, actually, because if we're talking about peace and I guess the escape of suffering, if you look deep enough within, you can see where your suffering comes from. And let's say psychological suffering. Most of your psychological suffering comes from the identification and belief in certain thoughts and ideas, emotions. So what K-Man was just describing there is that he was observing what was coming up with a sense of equanimity, where everything coming up was neutral. However, in the unconscious mind, thoughts and emotions that come up are labeled, either good or bad, or I like this and I don't like that. And the more you do that with those thoughts and come up, the more you start to create the personality and the person. And the more you identify with that, the more solidified you become in the ego. And that's all ego really is. It's just identification with a certain group of thoughts. So a thought may come up for you that causes you great pain, guilt, sadness, frustration. But for another person, it has no effect on them at whatsoever. So the more that you can take the time to sit back and just observe what comes up, and you can use a mantra like "Peace be with you," or gratitude, or love, or whatever, or you can simply just sit and watch. The more that you do that and disidentify with the thoughts, emotions, and perceptions, the more at peace you are, because you are the peace in which all of that is arising. Because you're not the thought that says, I shouldn't have eaten that last piece of cake, I'm a fat slob. Or, I'm a badass because I can lift X amount of pounds in the gym. You're not that. Stay with peace. Stay with the stillness. And the mind will naturally start to practice mindfulness. That's the mind's job, is to build the new patterns. You just sit in effortless stillness.
As if the only mindfulness necessary is to remain at peace with what is, as if you are just a mirror for all that is. It's like isness itself is standing in front of a mirror, and somehow the image in the mirror got it into their heads, which is just a reflection, that they can move independently of isness. And because of that, they're never at peace with what is. They're living off of reflections within reflections within reflections, going deeper and deeper into the mirror. But all that's necessary to end all the turmoil is to just come back and perfectly reflect what is. Be at peace with what is.
And it's good to sort of realize that you can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because what I am is literally the thing it's the moving part of the mirror. I'm made out of it. The small I. But if that moving mirror that's taken up some kind of identity independent of what's in front of the mirror can just realize it's a mirror, when the mirror can let go of the concept of its own independence and realize that it's just a reflection, then what is in front of the mirror can be realized.
And it's from this place where the teachings and scriptures of the masters come to life, right? Where when Jesus says something like, I of myself can do nothing, then you start to really understand what that means, not just as a concept, but as a living expression of who you are. Or the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. These things they're so cryptic and strange if you try and understand them intellectually. But from that place of peace and stillness, it's fully comprehensible. But not in a conceptual way, in an experiential way.
And for those of our brothers and sisters who find themselves in a particularly difficult or noisy or tumultuous emotional and mental situation, try to apply this principle in this way. Is the habit you're trying to stop, if it was a person or it was an other, what is its intention towards you? What is the thought that's arising in your head right now? What is its intention towards you? Is its intent loving or peaceful? And if it's not, then Why would you align yourself with it? Why would you give energy to it? Why would you ally with something that, if you question its intent, clearly does not have your best intentions at its heart? And with being with others who you may not get along with, question, honestly, have your intentions towards that other always been peaceful and loving? And if not so, then do not feel confusion at conflict. Conflict then becomes a matter of fact from the view of intention. So as much as you can, stay on the level of your peaceful intentions, and everything becomes, like Evan said, neutral or matter of fact. No mental gymnastics necessary. When your aim is clear, all is clear. And for those of you vibing with this, enjoy in the silence, being at peace with your own heart, with the self. That's all I can say today, my friend.
That was great. So, this has been another podcast with Cayman and Ev and Oneness Radio. We hope you enjoyed it. Please catch up with us again if you want to enter that space of pure peace. Peace out.
Peace, brother.